We have Ms. Vivian Stiver and Mr. John Eberhardt, both longtime Fairbanksans and leaders within the community. The purpose of today's forum is to help you make an informed decision as you cast your vote on Election Day, October 1st. We have a lot of ground to cover in only about an hour, so I will try to be brief with the remaining comments. A quick review of our format today. Candidates will begin with a 2-minute opening statement. The YPC would like each candidate to focus their remarks on their top 3 priorities for the city. We had a coin toss prior to the start of the forum to determine who will go first. Mr. Eberhardt, you will go first, followed by Ms. Stiver. After your opening statements, you will be asked a series of questions developed by the YPC and the Fairbanks Downtown Association. The first question will go to Ms. Stiver. You will have 2 minutes to respond. Mr. Eberhardt, you will have a 1-minute rebuttal opportunity, after which, Ms. Stiver, you will have the opportunity for one final 30 seconds if you so choose. We will proceed with this format for all 6 questions. The last 2 questions of the evening will come from each of you, directed to each of you, the candidates. Finally, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. Since Mr. Eberhardt, you will be provided the opportunity to go first in your opening statement. Ms. Stiver, you will have the opportunity to go last during your closing statement. Before I turn my attention to the candidates, I'd also like to ask the audience to please respect our candidates and the YPC by refraining from any responses throughout the forum other than your applause at the very end. This allows us all the maximum time possible to hear from the candidates. And I'm almost done here. I'd also like to give you one last couple minutes instructions here and draw your attention to Sean, who's seated in front of you. Sean is our official timekeeper and will indicate with a hand signal when you have about 30 seconds left and when your time has expired. There you go. In order to keep this forum moving and to be fair to both of you, please stop talking when you are out of time. I hate to interrupt, but I will, if I need to ensure both of you have the same amount of time to keep us rolling. Is everybody ready? Mr. Eberhardt, you may kick us off by providing us your opening statement.
Thank you very much, YPC, and welcome everybody. First, I'd like to pay my respects to the victims and heroes of 9/11. When you go out to the West Ridge here and you look in the distance, you see the Tanana Valley, you see the Alaska Range, and then you see the world. And I was lucky. I started here as a freshman a few decades ago, and then I went out into the world. Graduated from Georgetown University, Washington, D.C., went for a master's at Columbia University in New York City, then went to law school. So my first profession was professional student. Spent about 10 years living and working overseas, traveled to about 35 countries. So even though I was born and raised here, I decided to come back home and bring that education. And any of you can do that. You can come back here and you can be a big fish in what's a pretty small pond. So what have I done since then? I've been 15 years in government, between being a deputy city attorney and on the city council for 9 years. And I've been in business as well. I'm an arbitrator, mediator. I have been for 12 years. For 6 years on council, I've been the city council representative to the Public Safety Commission. So my first priority is improve public safety. I have a background in public safety matters. We talk about police, fire, dispatch, emergency disaster planning, things like that. And there's always room for improvement there to improve our public safety. The second priority is we need to lower energy costs. As I've walked around talking to people, it's scary how many people have left here or are thinking of leaving because they're having a hard time. They can't afford to live here. So we've taken steps to try to get that large-scale trucking of natural gas within a couple of years. I've got a background in small business. I started my first law firm 32 years ago, as soon as I was admitted to the bar. And I've got a background in big business. For the last 5 years, I've been Deputy General Counsel at Tanana Chiefs Conference.
Please wrap it up.
Is that stuck? Mm-hmm. I'm having trouble seeing the light. So.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Eberhardt. Ms. Stiver.
Thank you, and I want to thank everyone for being here and coming to listen to us tonight on this pretty sobering day. We attended a memorial this morning, and it was pretty shocking when they asked us to really go back in our minds and play back what happened today, all those years ago. And it was very interesting to have that focus because you do tend to want to forget. And so it's imperative that we don't forget those people and all that they did. I've been here for 36 years. I'm the first of my family to come here. I attended UAF as an older student. The joke was 2 kids, 2 classes, 2 jobs. So I came back, I graduated in 1991. My young son over there just graduated this year cum laude with a civil engineering degree and was very fortunate to find employment right away. For me, the priorities here in Fairbanks, of course, are the energy. Energy is kind of the root that leads to everything else for us. We need our people to be able to afford to live here. We need industry to come here. Industry is going to go where they get the best bang for their buck. So energy, all that we can do at the city, of course, is advocate for it right now. We have financing set up. There's a good plan in place, and we just have to encourage our leaders who have influence over that process to make the right choice and get us the affordable energy. Secondly, I think once we have that, we need to go out and look for those industries that want to come to Fairbanks. We need to take a long, hard look at ourselves and what we offer and market ourselves. Also, what's really important to me in this community too is our quality of life. I've been fortunate to volunteer in many, many groups around town. It's a wonderful city. It's a giving city, and I would like to see that, be even more enhanced.
Thank you, Ms. Stiver. We now turn to the 6 questions posed by the YPC and the Fairbanks Downtown Association. Question number 1, and Ms. Stiver, you get the first crack at this one. Mr. Eberhardt, you will have a minute after Ms. Stiver has her 2 minutes, and then Ms. Stiver, you'll have your 30 seconds if you so choose. Question number 1, and this is from the YPC. I am a graduate student at UAF. I'm about to finish my MBA. I'm 26 years old, not originally
Excuse
from
me, Derek,
Fairbanks.
that's number 2, I thought? Or did you guys mix them up?
We mixed them up.
Okay,
so.
no problem.
I'm 26 years old, not originally from Fairbanks. I like the outdoors, but I also enjoy coming into town once in a while for dinner and drinks with my friends. How do you convince me to stay in Fairbanks once I'm finished with my degree?
First off, if you already like the outdoors here and you're already enjoying the downtown, you're going for dinner and drinks, we've already hooked you. The problem is keeping you here, and that comes by having a community where we do have those opportunities. You're looking for career jobs. You're looking to start your profession at that age. We know this is a good community to raise our children in. We have good education here for our kids. And there's just many wonderful things to do around here. So what's most important is that we as a community have to get that, it's going to be the underlying tone with everything. Get our energy costs so that you can afford to be here. But we also have to, as mayor, attract businesses that pay well. Right now we hear we're over-retailed in the city. The reality is we do have a lot of retail jobs, but we don't have the higher paying jobs. We have to focus on that. We have to bring back headquarters that have left us to Anchorage. People do like Fairbanks, but it just can't be that expensive to live here.
Thank you, Mr. Eberhardt.
Quality of life issues are really important. If you want to attract people and you want to keep people, you have to have good quality of life and good amenities. So we're talking about good, safe schools. Our commission recommended putting police officers in a couple of schools, school resource officers. You need good, safe neighborhoods. You need thriving arts and culture in your community, which we have. We have a good variety of bars and restaurants, and people tend to go out a lot on a per capita basis. We have unparalleled outdoor activities, and there's an excitement of living in the last frontier. So these are the sort of things we would emphasize. You also need good medical facilities, which we have excellent here. But we need good jobs, and we need to be able to have opportunity for that graduate student. And part of getting those good jobs is getting these energy costs down, to keep business here, to attract more business, more opportunity.
Is there anything you'd like to follow up on, Ms. Stiver?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Question number 2, also from the YPC. And this will be Mr. Eberhardt first. You'll have 2 minutes, and then Ms. Stiver, you'll have an opportunity for 1 minute, and then 30 seconds for Mr. Eberhardt. Do you think the Community Service Patrol is important for the city? And if so, how should it continue to be funded?
The Community Service Patrol is critical. And I've been involved with CSP since 2004 when I was at Fairbanks Native Association, and later the service was taken over and run by the Downtown Association. It's a critical piece of a very important puzzle of substance abuse and chronic inebriates that every community has, including ours. And it ties in with the Golden Heart Project, the hospital, the enhanced detoxification facility, substance abuse programs, Housing First, which is a housing for chronic inebriates that recently opened. Those things all fit together, and they're all part of this puzzle. I co-sponsored the ordinance that provides $50,000 a year funding towards CSP through next year. So I want to see CSP continue. As I said, it's critical. I'm hoping the Downtown Association will be able to continue running it and funding it. If not, I as mayor certainly will want to look at how the city can help. One possibility is get our firefighters or fire department more involved. Most of the calls are medical related calls, not police calls. So it doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense for police to first respond, which is often the case, rather than EMTs or people with medical training. So basically, as I said, we need that service. I hope Downtown Association continues to run it. If they have any funding problem, I'll be stepping forward, leading the charge to make sure that that service continues.
Thank you. Ms. Stiver?
Yes, I'm very familiar with CSP since I've owned my business downtown. While on council, I drafted that legislation that John co-sponsored with me with the match. The reason that it's a match is because this is a community problem. It's going to take a community to solve this. We all have to contribute to the service downtown. And as a community, with everybody involved, we might be able to find the solutions and help. And I think that's very important that we remember it is not just one entity, that there are stakeholders across the board.
Thank you. Mr. Eberhardt, did you have anything to add?
The only thing I'll add is there was a proposal for what's called a local improvement district, but that did not fly with the voters who are the property owners in the area. So again, I think it falls back, it's incumbent on the city. You know, downtown is heart and soul of our city. I would also like to see the CSP area expanded. Give you a case in point, at one time in the Tanner Chiefs building, we had a person down in our lobby, but it was outside the boundary, so CSP would not come. So I want to see the coverage area expanded. I want to see that service improved.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Eberhardt. Question number 3, also from the YPC, and Ms. Stiver, you will go first here. Can you please define economic diversification? And using your definition, can you explain what you would do specifically as mayor to promote and develop economic activity in the city and diversify the economy?
The diversification would be businesses and industries that are not linked or not related. Currently in Fairbanks, we have monies, military, the university, big employers. We need industry to come in here to bring new wealth and new dollars to pass around. And one way we would do this is to convene a committee and work with others in our community to see what we could bring here. There's the technology, it's the tech transfer, and I know that the university talked about having I don't know if it's called a school, but they talked about having that here where you would look at the technologies that could come here. And that was really important to me, and I thought that was a very good idea. So as mayor, I plan to make sure that we bring everyone to the table and look at what we can do to diversify. What kind of things are out there that we can bring in? And I also would be very interested in tracking all the new, you know, they have conferences regarding this, and they have mayoral conferences that deal with these issues. And I think it's paramount that the mayor stay on top of the trends.
Thank you. Mr. Eberhardt?
When we talk about economic diversification, we talk about creating or fostering and enhancing development and economic or business activity. The factors I mentioned before are part of the equation: good schools, good university, good technical college, good medical facilities, good safe neighborhoods, beautification and landscaping, youth and senior activities, and thriving arts and culture. Those are all important part of the mix. I'm an adjunct teacher actually here and at the Community Technical College. I teach business law and employment law. I understand those areas. What I'll do, first of all, I'm going to go out and meet with the community partners like the Downtown Association and other groups. We have many of them, but as mayor, I want to sit down jointly and I want to ask them, what can we do? One of the questions to improve the economy, to foster economic development. To my understanding, that sort of joint meeting has not occurred. A lot of people doing good things, but they're sort of working in silos or in isolation. And then,
Please wrap it up. Thank you. Ms. Stiver, did you have anything else to add?
Well, I can add that those groups have met and they have done this before to try to join together and work for a common goal. And I think that still can happen. I've done it when I've worked on different legislation at the city. I've gone out to these groups and they've worked together to make changes.
Thank you. I'd also like to take a moment here. The current city mayor has snuck in without me knowing, and I just want to acknowledge Mayor Jerry Cleworth has joined us as well. So thank you, Mayor. Question number 4. This comes from the Downtown Association. And this will begin with Mr. Eberhard. Because the Polaris building has stood vacant and deteriorating for more than a decade, Mayor Cleworth has set the city on a course to condemn the Polaris building. As mayor, will you support and continue condemnation efforts, or will you choose a different path?
a limited liability company owns the Polaris building, but behind that, I think the manager is Mark Marlowe. And he's going to appear in front of the City Council on September 23 for what I think is the 4th time since I've been there. As I said, I've been on there 9 years. So the condemnation threat is there. He's got some dates that he's failed to meet. I want to hear what Mr. Marlowe has to say, because I hope he can bring that renovate the building and put it to productive good use. But if he won't, then I think we need to continue down the path of either condemnation or negotiating with Mr. Marlowe and or any lenders who might be there, of maybe giving a deed in lieu of foreclosure. That building is such a sore thumb in the middle of our city. It needs to either be taken down, replaced by something modern and new, or renovated. And if it is renovated, or if there's new building, that's going to bring people into the center. It's going to help revitalize that downtown. So I hope we can amicably resolve it if he's not able to move ahead. But like I said, I'll keep an open mind until the 23rd, see what he has to say.
Ms. Stiver?
Yes, thank you. I have spoken with the representatives of Marlowe's building. They have x-rayed that building. They're waiting for the results on that to see structurally what they can and can't do with it. I had an ordinance come forward at the city at one time to help out with this project. It's a unique building. It's one of 5 in the entire state. To bring that building down years ago was estimated to be $3 million. I would guess that years later it's going to be $4 to $6 million to take that down, and the state has its own financial issues. We will not have the money to do that. I think we do continue with the path the city's taken and don't stop until we actually see, the building, the work start to happen. But with that kind of cost to take down the building, I'm all for Marlowe. And that was what my ordinance was about, was to help him get started and renovate that. 30% of that building has to be retail, so the ground floor will be retail and so will the top.
Thank you, Ms. Stiver. Is there anything you'd like to add, Mr. Eberhard?
Well, I think we both agree we'd like to see the building put into productive use. But if that's not possible, it's time to take it down. And I will approach the other governments. I will talk to the borough government, and I'll approach the state as mayor and try to get help or contribution. The estimated cost is about $4 or $5 million, partly because there's asbestos in there, so you got to tent it and be careful with it. But it's time to come down if Mr. Marlowe can't proceed in a fairly fast time frame.
Thank you, Mr. Eberhard. Question number 5, and this comes from the YPC. Do you support or oppose unification of the 3 local governments, Fairbanks North Star Borough, City of Fairbanks, and the City of North Pole? Do you think the current local government structure serves the community well? Why or why not? And Ms. Stiver, you get to go first on this one.
Unification has been tried in the 70s, the 80s, and early 2000. There are a lot of things to have to consider on this. When you do that, the LBC, you don't go backwards. So you would take on the higher form of government and the duties that government has. Currently in the city, we have a permanent fund. We would have to address that. What would happen to that permanent fund if we united? Also, in the borough, we have a lot of folks in the borough that live there for reasons. They don't necessarily want to have building codes in the borough. They live a little bit more of a free lifestyle than those of us who've chosen to be in the city. This will have to come to the vote of the people. As mayor, I'm more than happy to come to the table with the city's concerns about how this could happen. I'm not sure if the timing is right, if we don't have enough population in the borough to support a borough-wide police department, which may be an outcome. So I think it's definitely something that can stay on the table to have discussions about, but it's a big step.
Thank you. Mr. Eberhard?
I've been looking at this issue since 2001, when the then mayor appointed me to a consolidation commission. And I came out against it based on the model at that time. Other areas in Alaska have unified or consolidated, and some very successfully. But there's no movement to do that at the current time that I'm aware of. If a model is produced or the petition is signed by enough people they want to have a vote on that, they're certainly free to do that. It's happened before, but it's never flown. And the situation may have changed because under the 2013 Defense Reauthorization Act, now military and civilian governments can cooperate to share resources to become more efficient, and savings between 20 and 40% are being shown in some areas where city and military are cooperating. So we can do a lot of sharing of resources, become more efficient, reduce cost in a way that we could not do previously. And that was sometimes part of the argument for unification. So at this time, I see no need for it.
Thank you, Mr. Eberhard. Did you have anything to add, Mr.
Thanks.
Question number 6, also from the YPC. And Mr. Eberhard, you will get the first crack at this one. Please describe your leadership style. Specifically, how do you approach working collaboratively with diverse associations? For example, the Greater Fairbanks Chamber of Commerce, the Fairbanks Economic Development Corporation, the Fairbanks Convention and Visitor Bureau, and so on.
You hear candidates when they're running sometimes, they say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Well, it doesn't work that way. You have to reach consensus. On city council, for example, you have to have a majority of the people with you. So you need to collaborate. You need to discuss things. And you need to win over your supporters. So my style is a collaborative one, involving a lot of discussion. And I mentioned I will talk to the community partners. One of the courses I teach is called Establishing Effective Community Partnerships. You get together, you have a project or goal in mind, and you talk with the community partners about how do you move toward accomplishing that goal. And we can do that with business, and we can do that with the community groups you've mentioned. And I've sort of approached city council in the same way that I do my arbitrations. I try to keep an open mind. I try to hear from everybody. I try to look at all the evidence or information. And then I try to make a fair and reasonable decision. Most of the ordinances I've introduced, for example, have been co-sponsored. I've gone to another member to also seek their support. My RAC card, if you look at the last bullet point, talks about communication, cooperation, and collaboration with community partners. So a consensus type decision making with a lot of collaboration discussion is what I favor. Our slogan there on the card talks about stronger together. We need to talk about things. We need to compare notes and ideas because by working together, we are stronger together.
Thank you. Ms. Stiver?
Yes, I'm very direct as a leader. I've gone out in the community, and on our bed tax, I was chair of the bed tax committee, and there were some issues that came up there. I went and spoke to the applicants. I went to our accounting department and spoke with them and spoke with the clerk's office. I always make sure that I get everyone who is involved in the situation to the table. Everyone has a voice. And once we've reached consensus, we move forward and we take action. I've been very fortunate on council to have...
You have 30 seconds.
Oh, 30 seconds. I'm sorry. I thought that was it. I apologize. I've been very fortunate on council that when I brought things forward, they have been supported, and I've been a consensus builder, most of them passing with unanimous votes.
Thank you, Ms. Stiver. Is there anything you'd like to add, Mr. Eberhard?
No, I don't think so.
Well, now is your opportunity as candidates to ask one another a question, so please play nice. Mr. Eberhard, you will ask Ms. Stiver first. Ms. Stiver, you will have 2 minutes to respond.
Okay.
And then Mr. Eberhardt, you will have opportunity for a 1-minute rebuttal, and then 30 seconds again for you, Ms. Stiver, just like we've been doing. So, Mr. Eberhardt, if you'd like to ask Ms. Stiver the first question.
Ms. Stiver, please tell us about your education and experience relevant to being city mayor.
I graduated from UAF with a bachelor's in psychology and an education minor. I have owned my own business, a couple of them here in Fairbanks. It was very rewarding and quite the experience. I've had a lot of experience with the building department when I remodeled the old Caribou Loan pawn shop and learned a lot about how the city operates their building department. I spent 6 years on the city council. I was very engaged. I was able to move a lot of legislation forward that dealt with the financial situation of the city, along with CSP and the bed tax, fiscal notes, a lot of different things. I spent 3 years in Juneau as a staffer, and that experience was invaluable to see how the state government operates. I had an opportunity to make friends of a lot of the staffers and the legislators, and it was just tremendous to understand how that works and how that can trickle down and affect the city government.
Thank you. Mr. Eberhardt, did you have anything to respond to?
I'm not quite clear on your rules, whether...
Just if you had anything to comment regarding her response to
regarding
the
what
question.
she said.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to ask questions? Let me just comment then. I appreciate, on city council, Ms. Stiver was a hard worker, and I'm not criticizing that. And she's got small business experience she's talked about. But I haven't heard Ms. Stiver comment on any large business or human resources type experience. And the job of city mayor to a large extent is managing the day-to-day affairs of the city, working with about a dozen departments and department heads. And that sort of large business experience dealing with many programs and many employees is a very different type experience than what I've heard mentioned.
Ms. Stiver, do you have a comment?
I can tell you this, 6 years on city council, I was in every department with every department head working on all the issues that came forward. I feel absolutely comfortable and confident that I can handle that job.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Stiver, is your opportunity to ask Mr. Eberhardt a question.
Currently, the city is debt-free and it's doing well financially. You're an arbitrator. If you have an arbitrator's award, because we're at an impasse on a union contract, would you fund that award out of savings? And if not out of savings, how would you fund it?
Most of the contracts, let me back up, the city workforce is very heavily unionized. I think there are only like 11 employees or positions that are not. So the reality is you have 4 major contracts or collective bargaining agreements. And you have obligations under those contracts in labor law that you will bargain in good faith, that if you can't reach agreement, you get to what's called impasse. And usually then you try mediation, where someone tries to amicably get the parties to resolve it. And if not, you go to usually binding arbitration. And you need to have rules like this. You have to have some rules to live by. And with police and fire, for example, they had to give up the right to strike in return for binding arbitration. So we need to take the arbitrator's award, and we need to do everything we can to make sure we can fund it. And we're in very good shape, and there shouldn't be any problem in the foreseeable future funding any of those awards. But we need to, at the same time, look for new sources of revenue. We've got about $10 or $11 million sitting there in unrestricted funds. Got about $5 million sitting in our capital fund. So if necessary, I would look to whatever source of free and unrestricted funding we have, if that's what it takes to fund that arbitrator's award.
Thank you, Mr. Eberhardt. Ms. Stiver, do you have a response?
I do. At the city in our charter, we are to have a balanced budget. That means that your expenses equal your revenues. And there are safeguards at the city to protect us. As you know, across the nation, many cities are going bankrupt, and we have to live within our means. We pay our people at the city not the highest, but not the least. And the concern is keeping our city financially healthy, and it's important to know that you just can't find money in a community that is suffering right now with the energy costs. And I would caution everybody or people about thinking that it's just that easy to find money. It's simply not.
Mr. Eberhard?
Well, my friend, I think, has admitted we're in pretty good shape at the city because we've been careful. We've been fiscally responsible. And in discussions I've had with union members in the past, I told them, if we really had a financial crisis, if we really didn't have any money, well, you obviously can't fund what you don't have money for. That's not the situation. And I've been involved with city on and off for 18 years, and I don't think I've ever seen a situation yet where we had to refuse to fund an arbitrator's award, because like I said, you have to have some rules for your workforce and management.
Thank you both. Out of respect for the format that we forwarded you and that we all agreed, that you agreed to, you don't have to commit yourself to this, but we do have some additional time, and I know you guys prepared some additional questions for one another. Do you guys want to ask an additional question of one another at this time before we go to closing statements, or are you guys good?
Yes? No? No?
Doesn't matter to me, John, whatever.
Okay, how about?
All right, Mr. Eberhard, you can go ahead and ask Ms. Stiver another question. Thank you for being nimble.
Address diversity, and what, if anything, you would do in that regard?
Diversity. We do have a diverse community. We have over 100 languages that are spoken in our community. I get a little confused when we talk about diversity. I have never had a problem in this town going anywhere, speaking with any group, or involving anyone at any time in any decision making that I've had. Now, I've come to understand from some people that they believe that we are still, I think the term is cyclones, of different pockets of communities that need more interaction with one another. And absolutely, I think that's one of the things you can do as mayors. You can be the leader in that. And like I said, I have never felt that I couldn't be or go anywhere in this community. It's a loving community, it's a welcoming community, and what we need to do is make sure that the people who are in these cyclones know that. And I think through leadership at the city mayor's office, you can do that, and you can bring more people in. We can go ahead and diversify more of the committees that we have and make sure everyone knows that they're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Eberhard?
Am I able to respond now?
Yes.
I've spent the last 9 years working for tribal organizations, and I've come to appreciate different cultures and traditions. And we are a diverse, multicultural community. And we need to talk. We need to come to understand each other and raise cultural awareness. We work best as Fairbanksans when we work together. This is part of the slogan I mentioned, stronger together. So I, as mayor, would look at wanting to set up a diversity council where I have like a representative from the, say, Alaska Native community and the African American community and Latinos and others, because I want to hear from them. I want to get their input. I want to hear what concerns them. I don't want any of them to feel marginalized or ignored in any way.
Thank you. Any closing comments on that one?
I'll just say this, that I have made it an absolute point to go to all the groups that I know that exist in our community and called them and asked if I could come meet with them during this campaign season. And the other thing is, everyone is busy, and I understand that. And the number one thing that I've told these people that I will do is I will come and meet you when you have your meetings, and I will bring anyone at the city who needs to address some issues. I think we have committees at the city now that we can diversify, but I welcome them.
Thank you, Ms. Stiver. And now is your opportunity to ask another question of Mr. Eberhard.
Can you tell me, Mr. Eberhard, what ordinance that you were personally and brought to the council that you're most proud of?
Well, I introduced or co-sponsored a number of ordinances, and as I said, my decision-making style is one of consensus, where normally I'll go to another council member too and try to get a co-sponsor. And part of the advantage of that is also talking to them at length and bouncing off ideas. So all but a couple ordinances I've introduced have been co-sponsored. I have introduced a couple on my own, and I have one pending right now. But the one I'm most proud of, I think, is funding the Community Service Patrol. And we've talked about that earlier at length. It's a vital, critical part of this whole piece of chronic inebriation and substance abuse in our community. It ties into the other components. I talked about housing first, the enhanced detoxification facility, and so forth. And you remember a few winters ago, several people froze to death. I mean, it's almost unimaginable, freezing to death in the heart of Fairbanks. We need to help people. We need to prevent that from happening. And as I said, as mayor, I'll certainly step forward to try to do everything I can to make sure that service continues.
Thank you. Ms. Stiver?
That is a very good ordinance, and I was glad that you signed on with me after I wrote it. I have to apologize. There was an ordinance that came forward, and I believe Mr. Eberhardt was on that, to remove the match from that very ordinance that he says he's proud of. That match is there for a reason. It is there to make sure our community is in this together to help the folks that suffer from the alcoholism downtown and receive the care that they need. So it's very interesting to me that we would want to remove a match when it is a community issue which needs a community that's going to solve it together.
Thank you, Mr. Eberhardt. 30 seconds.
The proposal to remove the match, as I recall, was because no other group has a match requirement. What the match says is if Downtown Association doesn't raise, I think it's $120,000 or $130,000, then they don't get the city money. And they came in front of us and said, you know, that seems unfair because no other group has that. And I did not make the motion to remove the match, to my memory, but it did come before us. And so that's the reason for it, is not to discontinue the service somehow.
Thank you. We'll now move into our closing statements from the candidates, and we'll begin with Mr. Eberhardt.
The economist Milton Friedman, you might remember, said there's no free lunch. So, you know, when we're young students like I was, and like some of you, we're probably more idealistic, but when we get in government, we have to balance all sorts of needs and wants, and you have limited resources, and we have to be fiscally responsible. And I've been a fiscally responsible, sort of middle of the road person. I told you the way I approach matters at council, trying to keep an open mind, trying to hear all the evidence, trying to make a fair and balanced decision. I think I'm a uniter. I think I've been successful at getting buy-in and trying to get other people to reach consensus and agreement so we can move ahead. And I've told you a little bit about my leadership style. I've got small business experience, I've got teaching experience, I continue to do that, and I've got large business experience. At Tanana Chiefs, I'm the mentor to the Human Resources Department. I'm the most senior HR certified person. We have 800 employees in dozens of departments. I'm also overseeing corporate compliance and governance, and I've done that for 9 years. That means I need to make sure we do things legally and ethically. So if you vote for me for mayor, you're going to get continued integrity, you're going to get consistency, and you're going to get stability in my decisions. I've got a legal background, which I think is helpful. You're always dealing with laws and ordinances and grant requirements and all sorts of rules and regulations. I've got 20 years in HR. As I said, the mayor runs the day-to-day operations, oversees about a dozen departments and department heads, and about 190 employees.
Thank you, Mr. Eberhardt. Ms. Stiver, your closing statement.
Thank you, and thank you, everyone. Well, I can tell you a couple things. My time on council, I was one of the most active council members. I worked hard and diligently, worked with integrity, built consensus not only on council, but throughout this community to move ordinances forward. They did not happen as a solo act on my part. I am an active leader, and that's where we're different. I do believe that as mayor, you have to go out and seek out the information your community has for you. You do work together. And you have to make sure that you are paying attention to the books. And I think this is one of the things now that we are doing so well financially. We have to guard that and we have to protect that. It is so easy to get lax about your finances when you're not feeling any pressure. So we're very vulnerable at this point, in my opinion, to decisions that could change our financial status. As your mayor, I'll take care of those books. I'll take care of the city. But I will also rejoice in the city that we are and participate as I do in the many nonprofits that are here. It gives me great joy in this community to see how many volunteers we have. And that has been changing. We've been losing our volunteers. We need them back. We need new folks like yourselves to come in and start filling these roles. We have a community that is valuable. It offers us a great quality of life. We have big issues ahead, and we need to make sure that when we're looking down the road and we're looking at a PERS debt that may fall on us, that we are managing our money responsibly, and we're not taking on more than we can afford that could be detrimental to us. So I want to thank you, and I hope that you will vote for me on October 1st.
Thank you, Ms. Stiver. Before we conclude our forum today, I'd like to thank everyone here for joining us today to talk about issues of importance to our community. And to the candidates, we sincerely appreciate your willingness to serve. Thank you for caring enough about this great city to put yourself in front of a target as you run for office. Neither campaigning nor serving in elected office are light commitments, and we are grateful to the both of you for your leadership and your dedication. Please join me in a round of applause for both of our candidates today.
Oh, and if anybody has questions, I'll be here for about 20 minutes. Please feel free to come and talk with me.
Great job.